Alright, what's up guys? This is going to be the last episode of CEH, the Certified Ethical Hacker Labs. The reason for it is there's really a couple things I didn't show you guys, and I'm going to just brief them in this episode, and I'm also going to show you guys something that's extremely important, which is encryption. And I uploaded a basics of encryption video on my channel. You can check that out, but that's more of what encryption actually is. This is going to show you how to encrypt files, and that's vital because when you're doing pen testing and when you're doing things, you're dealing with information that shouldn't be getting out. So especially if you're doing it for a company or something like that, and you're transferring it out, right? Let's say you got passwords and you want to transfer it. You have a back-end database somewhere where you're putting all this information, gathering it, so that way you can write the report, etc. You want to absolutely encrypt these files. It's very vital. So I'm going to cover that. The other things I'm going to cover is I'm just going to briefly explain the hacking of the phones that Android specifically, that I actually talked about in one of my other videos, and I'm going to briefly explain cloud computing. So the reason for this, phones. Again, number one reason I didn't do it is because really all they want you to know is that that Metasploit can basically create a Meterpreter shell on a phone, on an API phone. Now that's just your Android phones. Everyone should theoretically already know that. The other reason I didn't do it is because really all they're doing is having you create it. The actual backdoor basically is all you're creating. They're having you create it, and then they just have you send it in an email to the person with the device. Now, I've already shown how to send a shell through an email and do a backdoor, so I'm not going to re-show it just on a different OS. It's just pointless. You guys already get it. You get the concept. Now it's just doing it, creating it, okay? So that's why I didn't do the phone for first off, or any of the Android OSs, because it's basically the same steps as some of the other labs we did with a different actual Meterpreter shell. So I'm not going to do that. Now, the other thing I'm going to cover that is important is cloud computing. So what I'm basically going to do is tell you guys of a called OwnCloud. If you've never heard of it, it lets you create a personal cloud on a Linux server. The reason this is important is because if you can do this, you can create an actual virtual cloud. Okay, now if you guys have ever logged into like Google Docs or something like that, that's a cloud, right? You can create one very, very, very similar to that, which will be basically you'll log in, you'll have access to your cloud, your information, your files, etc., and anywhere in the world. Now that's only if the server is running on your home computer, or if you have a server somewhere. I will set one up when I move. I will set up a virtual cloud for myself and kind of show it to you guys if you want. But because I'll actually get a physical server. The thing is with these requirements is depending on how much data you're putting, you do have to have a SQL database running and things like that. So there is actually some overhead cost with it theoretically. So that's why I didn't do it on my personal computer, because I'm actually running out of memory on my computer. I need to get more, but just haven't done it yet. So I didn't want to create another backend database, another SQL database, etc., 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 just to show you guys. But OwnCloud is the name of the brand. It's very popular, very good, and it's basically a secure cloud. So now let's get into the actual program. Okay, so this is called Advanced Encryption Package. Very basic, free. There is a pro version. This is the trial version, but the trial version you can just redo every 60 days or whatever it is. So anyway, this is the best way, in my opinion, to go ahead and actually encrypt your files. Now, you're probably thinking, why would I encrypt a file, right? So, for instance, this is just an example. If you guys have ever heard Snowden talk, or anyone like that talk, he's probably the most profound. He encrypted his files like, I think it was like 7 times or something. It was something insane. Like, he just kept encrypting it, encrypting it. Now, the reason for that is you have to decrypt it every time, right? So the reason for that is the more you encrypt it, the harder it is to get. You know, you're not going to break that encryption. If you do, well, there's another one, etc., etc. Now, what I'll show you here is I just created an example aep.txt. So this program is super easy. I mean, super simple. Probably one of the simplest programs you'll ever see. So you take the file, as you guys can see. You can delete it, you can do whatever. But what you do is you just go to wherever you're at. So I'm on my C drive. I put it in downloads just for a temporary spot. In aep.txt, AEP is Advanced Encryption Package. I just created a text file, and I'll pull up the text file and show you guys. Thought I had it open already. It just says this is an example of encryption using AEP. Okay, easy. And we've already got it here. And I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. Okay, and you notice it's not gone. So this doesn't really have a refresh option. That is the refresh option. Closing that and opening it back up. Okay, so there's the aep.txt. So okay, now we're going to go ahead and click on encrypt. We're going to set a password. The password is just going to be example and example. And you can see here the algorithm, how many different types there are. Okay, the reason this is important is if you're really that worried about it, you can obviously use better encryption, worse encryption, whatever your level of comfort is with it, which is really cool. We're just going to do the default. And then you can see here you can pack the file and then encrypt it. So you can actually zip up the file basically and then encrypt it. The other thing you can do, delete after encryption. So you can basically, once you take a file like this, I'll delete it after encryption just to show you guys. Once I encrypt it, that source file is gone. The reason that's, we don't need to securely delete it. The reason that's important is because, let's say it's a very, very important document. The question is, do you want to keep one on your host? Do you trust that computer? Do you want to keep it there? Or once you encrypt it, do you want it not accessible except for with encryption? The problem with that is, let's say you do have a password, right, on it. And let's say you lose the password, forget it, whatever, because you make this password extremely secure and you lose it or forget it. That file is no longer ever accessible again. Okay? So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and encrypt it. So it's as simple as you click on the file, you type the password that you want, choose the encryption algorithm, and then if you want to delete it, you can. And you can also put it in different folder, which is very good too, because as you'll see, if I didn't delete this file, what would happen is it would create that second one like I showed you before, aep.txt, and then the encryption. But then when I go to revert it back, decrypt it, it's going to have an issue writing over this one. It's not an issue, it's just going to ask you if you want to overwrite it. So that's why it's good you can change the folder so that way you're not overwriting it or change the name. But we're going to go ahead and encrypt it. It's simple as that. Click it, password, whatever, boom, boom. And then we'll just encrypt now. Boom. Now look. You can see here, the original's gone, but this one's still here. So now let's try and open this. It doesn't know how to open it. My computer doesn't understand how to open it. Okay? And whatever I try and open it with, it's not going to let me. It's just going to come up as, like, if I tried to open with, okay, so it actually has the AP here, but if I tried to open it with, like, let's say Notepad, right? So let's just do, is Notepad on here? There it is. Just Notepad. This is what it looks like. Just random stuff. Okay? So now, we go back here, we click on it, we click on the decrypt tab, and you can see here you can also zip them up and stuff, which is cool. So now you type the password. Okay, source file, you can change it to delete. You can leave it alone, whatever. I'm going to leave it alone, and then we'll delete it. We'll encrypt it. Decrypt it, excuse me. Decrypt. So now you see that we have two. We have the encrypted one and now the unencrypted one. If we delete it, it would just go back to the regular one. Now, I like to leave the regular one and then decrypt it, and same with encryption, only because I want to ensure that it works properly before I do it, so that way in case something gets corrupt, anything like that, I'm not worried about it. So let's go ahead and open this. Boom. And you can see this example of encryption using AP. It worked perfectly. Now, I know a lot of people think encryption is, okay, yeah, we get it, but you can't understate how important it is, or overstate it, I should say. You can't. What I mean by that is anything you're sending, when you're pen testing, if you're sending, the pen test report to the company, anything you find to the company, anything, this should all be encrypted. You should never, ever send it to them unless you're physically handing it to them. you should never send them something unencrypted because that has all their company's information. Let's say, for instance, you do a pen test. This is an example. Let's say you do a pen test for some large insurance company, whatever, and you get done with this, right? And you know that insurance company has credit card information, social security numbers, everything that people need in their databases, you know, and you send this over, right? But someone knows that you were doing this pen test. You're a known hacker, let's say, okay? So someone knows you're doing this, and they just catch it while you send it, right? They grab it out of the air, they use whatever method they want, and it's not encrypted. Those guys, you just gave them a playbook how to get into that company's information. So you have to think of these things. Basically, the rule of thumb that I use is I would rather be over secure than under secure. So if I don't know if it should be encrypted, I encrypt it. Okay? If I'm on the fence about it, I encrypt it. Now, if I know it's something silly, if I'm sending you a, hey man, how's it going? How you doing this weekend? Email, not worried about it, right? Something like that, not worried about it. But if I know it's important, there's two things I'm going to do. Number one, I'm going to send you the encrypted file, right? So let's say I'm sending you something. Number two, I'm going to send you the hash of the encrypted file. The reason for that is because when you get that file and you get the hash, you download that file, you check the hash, you know for a fact that that file is what I sent you and that it's secure. You know that because if you just send the hash but don't encrypt the file, what happens, or what can happen, is someone can grab that and still view it and never change anything and pass it on, and you wouldn't know. You would know you have the correct file, but it would never be changed. So what I mean by that is if someone just wants the information, they can get that information still. But if you encrypt it and do that, the reason that's important is because typically if someone decrypts it and re-encrypts it to try and send to you or anything like that, typically the hash is going to change because the chances of them using the exact same thing is pretty slim. Now, that's not always true. It's still possible. But what I mean is if you decrypt or if you encrypt it and do the hash, you're 99% sure that that is the file that was sent to you and that it's secure, that no one else saw it, okay? So that's why it's very important to try and send those two things when you're sending important documents. Now, if you're not sure, so this happens time to time, if you're not sure that the person on the far end knows how to decrypt it or knows how to even compare the hashes, you may want to call them on the phone, explain it to them, something like that. Now, the problem with calling on the phone, obviously, someone could be listening. Now, this is where you're talking, you got to mitigate risks, not eliminate risks. So what I mean by that is, and this is kind of the broad overall thing with CEH in general or hacking in general, is nothing is ever 100% secure. Pen testing is all about mitigating risks, not eliminating them. And what I mean by that is you're never going to get a company to eliminate all risks, right? Because theoretically, to eliminate all risks, I got to shut my box down, turn all ports off, and just be isolated here, no one do anything. That eliminates all risks, right? That's not feasible in any environment. So you're trying to mitigate, not eliminate. Keep that in mind. I've seen a lot of pen testers who want to fix everything. It's not possible, okay? So that's why you give your recommendations to the company. They decide. Okay, so keep that in mind as well. Especially when you're doing smaller companies, keep in mind that some of those IT professionals, that's not their job isn't pen testing or cybersecurity, it's more system administration. So they may not have a clue of what you're trying to tell them. So keep these things in mind when you guys are going forward with your careers, trying to understand that not everyone is security oriented and not everyone understands. So make sure when you're doing these encryptions, when you're doing these hashes and things like that, make sure the person on the far end understands as well, because there's nothing worse than you going and sending your report to them, right? And it's encrypted and you have a hash, whatever, and they don't even know what it is. They don't understand it. And some IT guys, just saying, might be too proud to say, hey, I don't know what's going on here. They might just take it with a grain of salt. So keep these things in mind when you're talking, make sure talking to each other, and even when you establish your boundaries at the beginning, when you talk about your scope and everything like that with pen testing, you want to establish we're going to be sending you encrypted message or encrypted files. We're going to be sending you the hashes. Here's what we're doing, etc., etc. You want to lay everything on the table so they get it, you get it, and everyone is on the same page and understands. So keep that in mind. And like I said, that's why encryption is so important. It protects you, protects them, and the biggest thing is it protects you legally as well. You're not accidentally leaking information and getting sued in the future. That's the biggest thing. So that's pretty much it, guys. That wraps up the CEH course. I hope you guys liked it. I love doing it. Those are the labs, literally book or directly out of the book. I skipped some of the basically repetitive labs. There's a lot of labs in there that just keep repeating the same thing. I skipped them. What I do recommend is going through these videos again and practicing them, understanding what you're doing. And like I said, OwnCloud is a really cool tool. So I spoke about it, but I'm going to tell you guys kind of the reason to have a cloud-based server like that is simply, again, if you're pen testing, if you take your laptop, you don't want to fill this thing up with reports, right? Or with information or anything. Let's say they have a huge file that you're able to grab and it has a ton of information, but it's 100 gigs. You don't want to be having hard drives and hard drives of just random information. Send it to a cloud server somewhere. Again, if you're doing a remote pen test, you can use a Raspberry Pi, and that obviously doesn't have a lot of data, so you have to, or a lot of memory, excuse me, so you have to send that out. So that's the whole point of the cloud server. That's kind of what I was hinting at. Again, you can use it for personal use as well. It's a lot of fun. But that's, like I said, that's pretty much it for the CEH. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm definitely going to keep going with cyber and different things. I think my next course might be either a Python or maybe a PowerShell type course. I'm thinking Python, just because Python's so useful in pen testing. So I'm thinking doing a Python course will be fun. I've shown some bash scripting and stuff. I have some random videos that instead of just CEH specific, they are just random, and those are helpful in cybersecurity as well. The biggest problem that I'll just warn you guys is once we start diving real deep into this stuff is you have specialists, okay? So if you have a SQL specialist, right, and he knows how to break every SQL database, et cetera, right? He's going to be better at SQL than me because I don't specialize in that. So the problem comes in where I can only teach you guys so far, and then you have to decide what you enjoy and spread out. And that's fine. That's good. That's what we want. So my job is to just get you guys to the basics, understand it, and hopefully get you interested in it. So let me know if there's anything you guys want to see specifically, and I'm going to try and keep uploading consistently and try and get you guys as much information as I can. So once again, guys, I appreciate your support, and I definitely love the CEH course that we've done. I think it's a good stepping stone for anyone trying to get their CEH. So let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment below and tell me what you guys want to see, and I'll try and get it uploaded. Thanks.